If you've been enjoying the content, I really appreciate the support because it helps the channel a lot. Now let's get into Game 1 of the Las Vegas Summer League, where the New York Knicks opened against a Brooklyn Nets squad loaded with young talent, including top 6 pick Mal Brown Jr. and 5 first-round selections from last year's draft. On paper, Brooklyn had the stronger roster and looked like the favorite, and that's exactly how it played out, with the Knicks falling 91-65. Mal Brown Jr. led the Nets in scoring, while Pacome Dadier, the Knicks' former first-round pick who is still with the organization, paced New York with 20 points. Even with the loss, there were a few performances worth highlighting, and Dadier definitely deserves some recognition. Still, the player Knicks fans are probably going to be talking about the most is Tyler Nickel, the sharpshooting wing out of Vanderbilt whom Leon Rose and the Knicks selected in the second round of the 2026 NBA Draft. Nickel finished with 18 points after knocking down 6 of his 10 attempts from beyond the arc for an impressive 60%, while also grabbing 4 rebounds. His defense had some rough moments, but that was already part of the scouting report, so it wasn't exactly a surprise. Bleacher Report compared his game to Duncan Robinson, now with the Detroit Pistons after his time with the Miami Heat, and offensively he looked every bit like the player many expected. It was an encouraging debut, and plenty of Knicks fans noticed it, including The Athletic's James L. Edwards, who said Tyler Nickel's shooting looked exactly as advertised through the opening quarter, and also reminded everyone that New York still has an open roster spot. That's an interesting point, because if you're looking to fill that final spot, adding an elite three-point shooter certainly makes a lot of sense. Nickel arrived after 2 seasons at Vanderbilt where he shot better than 40% from 3, and before that he connected on 39.9% of his attempts at Virginia Tech during the 2023-24 season. He showed that same shooting touch in this game, and Chris Parrison echoed that by saying Nickel confidently took open shots, knocked them down, totaled 9 points and 4 rebounds early on, and competed defensively even if the results weren't ideal. That pretty much matches the expectations surrounding him, because defense isn't expected to be his calling card. What you do want to see is consistent effort on that end, and Tyler Nickel gave the Knicks exactly that, by continuing to battle even when things weren't going his way. The defensive fundamentals can improve over time, but the shooting ability is already there, and based on this first Summer League performance, New York may have found a real value pick in the second round. Players like Tyler Nickel don't have to become complete stars to make a real impact. If he can consistently come off the bench and knock down three-pointers, that's the kind of role every NBA contender is looking for, and the Knicks are no exception. That's why his performance was so encouraging, and honestly, he stood out even before he hit those late threes. From the way he carried himself to the confidence he played with, Nickel looked comfortable from the opening tip, and he didn't seem overwhelmed at all despite facing tougher competition than he saw in the SEC. That said, he wasn't the only Knick who deserved some recognition after this game. Pacome Dadier also turned in a strong performance, even though he's become one of those players many fans tend to overlook. Since being selected 25th overall in the 2024 NBA Draft, Dadier has mostly been developing at the end of New York's bench, and everyone understood from the beginning that he would need time. Even so, a lot of the current conversation isn't about when he'll crack the rotation, but rather what kind of player or asset the Knicks could get if they eventually move him. On the stat sheet, Dadier led New York with 20 points, shot 6 for 16 from the field, made every free throw, grabbed 7 rebounds, and, unlike the rest of the starting lineup, finished the game without committing a single turnover. The difference between evaluating him and evaluating Tyler Nickel is pretty clear. With Nickel, the question is whether his shooting is good enough to earn rotation minutes, while with Dadier, the focus is whether a strong summer league can raise his trade value. His experience also shows, considering this is already his 3rd summer league, after appearances in 2024 and 2025, making him much more seasoned than many of the first-year players on the floor. At this stage, most Knicks insiders aren't projecting an especially high ceiling for Dadier, even with his developmental background. Instead, many fans are hoping he continues to play well because it could help New York package someone like Dadier together with Deuce McBride in a deal for the rim-protecting center the roster still needs. That type of move would address an immediate need with a player who can contribute right away, instead of waiting on another long-term development project. And if Dadier eventually reaches his full potential, there's also a fair chance the Knicks wouldn't be able to afford keeping him anyway. Even if Pacome Dadier eventually reaches his potential, there's still the question of how much that actually helps the Knicks if he doesn't fit into their long-term plans. That's why so much of the conversation around him isn't about whether he's available, but what kind of return New York could get in a trade. Still, performances like this definitely help his case, especially because he finished extremely well around the basket. Some of those looks were wide open, but Summer League has shown that even easy opportunities aren't automatic, so you still have to give him credit for converting them. The other players everyone was watching coming into this game were Mohamed Diawara, Tyler Nickel, and Jack Killey, the Knicks' 2 second-round picks being Nickel and Killey. Unfortunately, Killey never saw the floor, so there really wasn't anything to evaluate from his debut. After checking the official game information, it was also confirmed that Keith Palak didn't play either, meaning we'll have to wait for another Summer League game to get a better look at both players. As for Mohamed Diawara, a lot of people are going to focus on how rough his stat line looked, but it's important not to overreact after just one game. The Knicks essentially handed him the keys to the offense and asked him to operate as the team's primary creator, even though that's not the role he's expected to play at the NBA level. Chris Person made that same point, explaining that Summer League is often about pushing players outside their normal responsibilities, and Diawara is really more of a finishing wing with some secondary playmaking ability. The numbers were undeniably rough, including a -36 in just over 20 minutes, and he finished only 1 for 9 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, scored 7 points, and posted an even worse -39 rating by the end of the night. But those stats also came while he was being asked to do things that don't match his strengths. Diawara is much more comfortable as a catch-and-shoot option and complementary wing than as someone creating offense possession after possession. You could tell the workload affected him mentally, especially with a few uncharacteristic airballs, including one on a wide-open turnaround jumper. Based on what he showed during the regular season, where he shot 36.9% from 3, he's clearly a better shooter than what we saw in this Summer League opener. For that reason, I'm not going to draw any major conclusions from one difficult performance. That's all I've got for this one, and if you watched all the way to the end, I really appreciate the support. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Knicks!